Get down on your knees, boy. You're going to be doing some praying for me. Good evening, everyone. This is Stone Gasman live from New York City. And tonight we are going to be doing audio commentaries for two movies I'm very much looking forward to doing. First, we're going to be doing Deliverance, directed by John Boorman and starring John Voight and Burt Reynolds, Ronny Cox, and Ned Beatty. And a little later on tonight, I'll provide the link for the stream when it becomes ready to go. But tonight at 11 p.m., we'll be doing a commentary for Night Shift, my favorite comedy of all time, starring Henry Winkler and Michael Keaton. That'll be in approximately 2 hours from now. But first, we need to do Deliverance because it is the 50th anniversary of Deliverance. It came out on July 30th, 1972. So today is, in fact, the 50th anniversary. And part of the reason why I also decided to do Night Shift after Deliverance is because it came out on July 30th, 1982. So this is, in many ways, a dual anniversary to what I think are two great classic movies. I haven't seen Deliverance since high school, to be perfectly honest. In fact, I just got this in the mail yesterday, and I've been watching it over again and watching all the bonus features, getting ready for tonight and getting ready for this commentary. And I must say that I wasn't as disturbed as I thought I was going to be. I mean, the first time I saw it in high school, it did disturb me. Watching it again, I was a little bit more prepared for it, and ended up surprisingly liking a lot of things about it that I'm looking forward to talking to tonight. But anyway, I am currently paused at the Warner Communications Company logo, which you all should be at home if you're going to go ahead and join in on this audio commentary for Deliverance. So I'll give everybody just maybe about another 60 seconds paused at the Warner Communications Company logo for Deliverance. And I got the Blu-ray book, actually. And this has some great bonus features. I'll be sure to talk about them a little later in the commentary and everything. This is like the third one I've gotten one of these in the past year. I mean, along with like Chariots of Fire. And I forget what the other one is right now. But I've been really digging these. I've really been digging these. So Deliverance is a classic. It's an absolute classic of cinema. I mean, it's one of the best films of the 1970s, in my opinion. It got some Academy Award nominations. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Editing. Well, let's put it this way. In the words of Burt Reynolds, he feels that the reason why the movie did not win Best Picture is because of his nude Playgirl spread, which had come out at the exact same time. Well, he thinks that's the reason why it didn't get the Oscar, but The Godfather did. I mean, even John Boorman on the bonus features admits that, well, we had Godfather, we had Cabaret, we had many other great films that year. Deliverance, while it was a huge hit for the studio, despite their worries about this movie in many ways. But anyway, why don't we go ahead and get started? Pause at the Warner Communications Company logo for Deliverance, and we will start at the count of 3, 2, 1, and play. And we just heard Ned Beatty's laughter, and see a John Boorman film. They're going to flood the whole valley. They're drowning the river. They're drowning the river, man. I love this line right here that just about the last wild, untamed, unpolluted, unfucked up river in the South. Yes, indeed. As we go ahead and start Deliverance here. Just real quick, let me say hi to Joe Bob Tarheel in the chat. Glad you could join me tonight, sir. When this movie was released on July 30th, 1972, the number one song in USA was Alone Again, Naturally by Gilbert O'Sullivan, and he became the first Irish artist to hit number one in the United States. Wow. That's amazing. All right. Bill McKinney, Herbert Cowboy Coward, two of the most legendary villains in all of cinema. Now, I remember when I rented Deliverance back in high school. I mean, this was one of course, a thousand movies that I just, I walked up to the library. I rented a bunch of films when I was like 13, 14, 15. And Deliverance was one of them because I knew that it had this reputation as being a classic. Leonard Maltin gave it 4 stars in his movie review book, and read nothing but good things about it before I actually watched it. But I wasn't prepared for how intense the movie was going to be. I really was not prepared for how intense all this was going to be. Director of photography, Vilmos Zsigmond. We'll talk about him later on. Beautifully shot movie, despite the violence that we're going to experience later. Just a gorgeously shot movie, which ironically enough, they had to do a lot of color correction in the editing process in post-production because of certain things like the river being too pretty, believe it or not. I mean, when you would think that it would be the exact opposite, that it looks just as murky as it does on film. No, that was achieved through color correction, actually. Dueling Banjos credits right here. The song Dueling Banjos is an arrangement of the song entitled Feuding Banjos. And it also gave the names of the gentlemen that were responsible for writing the song. Based on the novel by James Dickey, who also wrote the screenplay, and produced and directed by John Boorman. Yes. Like I said, this came out July 30th, 1972, and caused quite a stir in the public. I mean, it was got uniformly excellent reviews across the board. I mean, the critics really liked it, and it became a massive financial success, making $46 million on a $2 million budget. This was a notoriously low-budget film from the studio, who basically somebody at the studio had actually read the novel, which came out in 1970, and loved it. James Dickey was a very colorful character, needless to say, because he's famous in the literary world for his poetry. He actually wrote a lot of poems, came out in book form in 1968, won a bunch of awards. But he had wanted to do Deliverance for a long time, and he would go around. James Dickey was actually on set for maybe the first few weeks of filming, and he would bother the actors while they were working, and would call them by their character names, and would tell them stuff like, "Hey, you know this stuff in the book. This actually happened to me in real life." What? So he really became a nuisance. In fact, it got to the point where during one of the canoe scenes that he just got into an argument with John Boorman one day, and then they had a fist fight, and they had to be broken apart. So the author James Dickey eventually got kicked off the set, so they could shoot the rest of the movie without without him compromising the process. And everything, because he obviously did not understand that there's a process in filmmaking that needs to be respected, and he would be offset, like being very disappointed about a piece of dialogue that was changed, or something of that nature, something small and petty, But John Boorman loved the book, and at the same time, he was also glad to have Dickey around for those first few weeks. And eventually, what's amazingly, even though they had that fist fight and he was thrown off the set for a while, he was asked to come back to play the sheriff. We'll see him near the end of the movie. And he and John Boorman eventually reconciled and became good friends. So, something positive came out of that. In fact, I mean, there was a lot of positive vibes on this movie, even though it was hell for the actors. I mean, this was a real test of endurance and physicality for everybody involved, because they were seriously out there in northern Georgia in the boondocks. I mean, they shot near the Appalachian Trail and everything. It's pretty extraordinary. Now, this is the very first scene that was shot for Deliverance, and it's one of the most legendary scenes in all of cinema, of course, which is the dueling banjos scene. This song was actually written in 1955, but it became really famous because of this movie, so much that the song actually won a Grammy Award the next year in 1973. And John Boorman actually had a copy of the gold record of that. And when it was stolen from his home, he made a whole movie about that experience called The General. But this is amazing. So, and then this is actor Ronny Cox right here. Later on, would star in Beverly Hills Cop and RoboCop, of course. You know, but this was his first movie. This was the first movie of both Ned Beatty and Ronny Cox. Nobody had ever seen them on film before. And when Warner Brothers, when they were interested in actually doing this movie, they didn't want to pay. There was going to be no insurance on this movie. I mean, actually, to be honest, I mean, when they were trying to find actors that could pull this off, that would be willing to go out there and do all these things, basically in the middle of nowhere. I mean, originally the idea was that Jack Nicholson said that he would be willing to do the John Voight role if Marlon Brando is willing to do the Burt Reynolds role. So that was something that he threw out there on the table. Say, hey, look, Jack Nicholson was like, hey, I'll do this movie, but I want Marlon Brando right next to me. I mean, no studio could have dreamed that up. I mean, can you imagine Deliverance with Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando? I honestly can't. That would be pretty extraordinary. And this all happened on the fly. I mean, that gas station attendant, he just started dancing along to this dueling banjos number. And as you can see, the young man that's actually playing the guitar, that's not his arm. That's not his arm that's curled up on the guitar, because this kid, he didn't know how to play the guitar. He's actually miming the guitar playing right here, the banjo playing. And yeah, I mean, that's an arm coming around him on the left side and plucking the strings right there. That's not his arm. That's not his left arm. That's a kid that actually could play the banjo that was seated beside him. And he later did Big Fish for director Tim Burton when he was all grown up. And he later said, well, I got to say that, Tim Burton was a lot nicer to me than Burt Reynolds. And now in reality, he actually liked Ronny Cox, but did not like Ned Beatty. So, oh, no, it was the other way around. Excuse me. He liked Ronny Cox, but did not like Ned Beatty. And when he was supposed to turn away because he liked Ronny Cox, he didn't want to turn away from him like that. So they just pushed Ned Beatty in the frame there, and he looked away. Brilliant performance. Brilliant performance. Hey, Dan, how you all doing tonight, man? Yep. Hey, Dan, how many times have you... hey, Joe Bob and Dan, how many times have you seen Deliverance before? I mean... is this a movie that you've seen multiple times? Is this a movie that you love in any way, shape, or form? I actually listened to the audiobook for Deliverance, and the first third of the book in Dickey's novel is basically devoted to the businessmen's lives back in Atlanta, Georgia. That shot right there, they just put a camera in the window and looked at this woman and this little girl. Yeah, they just put the camera in the window. They were just people that were there in this little town in northern Georgia. Um, Burt wanted actually to shoot this movie in Florida, but the governor wasn't a big fan of that idea. But as luck would have it, Burt Reynolds also owned a cabin in northern Georgia, where they coincidentally where they were going to be filming this movie. So he went to the then governor at the time, who was actually Jimmy Carter, of all people. This is before he became president. And it was largely because of Burt Reynolds and Jimmy Carter that Georgia became one of the most sought after states for film productions to go to. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. Burt Reynolds and future President Jimmy Carter, who's still with us, by the way, still with us, absolutely. I don't think John Voight was a fan of the guy, but but now this is the movie that actually made Burt Reynolds a star, because before this movie, Burt Reynolds had actually he had done like 3 television shows and they all failed. They had all failed. He had done a show right before this where he was like a cop and everything, and while it was finally remembered and rerun later on in the 1970s after his success on the big screen, you know, he really did struggle early on as an actor. I mean, I've only seen one movie with Burt Reynolds before Deliverance came out, because, you know, he started out in television in the 1950s. You know, he was actually, he played like an Air Force pilot, which was shot for an anthology series on television. And he had done like Gunsmoke, and he had done, I mean, that's how he met John Voight. He actually worked with John Voight on several episodes of Gunsmoke together. And so they had kind of a camaraderie early on, which of course benefited the movie. Now, and so Burt Reynolds, I mean, he had the only movie I had seen him in that came out before Deliverance was a movie called Skullduggery, which came out in 1970, where he and Arthur C. Carmel you know, went out to like the jungles of Malaysia, and they found this primitive civilization, which they of course started to exploit and everything. And you know, there was this trial at the end to determine if they were animals or humans or everything. A really weird movie called Skullduggery, which, to be honest, the only thing I liked about it was the music. But everybody knew, John Voight, everybody who worked with Burt Reynolds on this film knew that he was about to explode, that he was going to become one of the biggest movie stars of the 1970s. But here, I mean, you know, they were really banking on whether or not he and John Voight were going to carry this film, because John Voight was also, ironically enough, at a low point in his career as well. I mean, granted, he had done Midnight Cowboy, and he was nominated for an Academy Award for that, for Best Supporting Actor. But the latest film that he was looked at, I mean, a lot of his previous films had been flops and everything. So they were kind of hoping that this movie would save their careers, and it did. But of course, as John Voight would jokingly say years later, that, you know, John Boorman saved his life, and then for the entire time during production would put his life in danger. Because what stuntmen? What stuntmen? Well, no, we don't have any stuntmen. We're not. We're not. Okay, John Voight wasn't really acting right here. He was actually traumatized by Burt Reynolds driving. I mean, Ronny Cox on one of the bonus features, you know, says he laughs his ass off every time he looks at this sequence, because because he wasn't there for all of this, and when he finally saw this, he's like, "Oh no!" And they actually got into a ravine, and you know, it's not like, I mean, the camera was mounted on the car. John Boorman wasn't directing this. Okay, they were kind of directing themselves without a paddle, essentially. But it worked. Oh my God, did it work so much? You hear that? Yeah. Like I said, Burt Reynolds, as I said before the commentary started, that Burt Reynolds is absolutely convinced that his naked Playgirl spread is what prevented this film from winning Best Picture. I don't know, man. I don't think it had a chance up against Michael Corleone. I just don't think it had a chance. But I mean, Burt, I mean, his career, like I said, exploded after this. He was in The Longest Yard the year after this, and he, of course, eventually did Smokey and the Bandit, which is considered a classic of the genre. I'm not the biggest fan of Smokey and the Bandit. I'll be perfectly honest. I mean, I get why people love it. No, I totally get the whole thing with the Coors beer and how it was illegal, to have it, at that area of the country and everything, and to illegally transport it cold. I get it. I get it. Okay. I've had a cold Coors beer. So I absolutely understand why people love Smokey and the Bandit. It's just not my bucket of grease. Let's put it that way. And of course he later became a director. He directed himself in the end and everything. And he had done movies like Sharky's Machine and Stick. He did all these macho roles in the 1980s. And and he would eventually get an Oscar nomination for Boogie Nights, the Paul Thomas Anderson film where he played a 1970s porno director, which afterwards Burt basically dismissed as one of his worst roles, or he just didn't like doing that movie or whatever. He was just, despite the fact he got an Oscar nomination, which is pretty extraordinary. But sadly, he passed away in 2018. He's one of the 4 actors who are no longer with us. But actually, Reynolds deserves a lot of credit for the success of Deliverance, because he also was able to get Cowboy Coward because he had known him from this North Carolina, gun show that he was in, like 10 years before he got into pictures. It's like, hey, I know a guy that could play this role, that could play the role of, it's like, you're going to be doing some praying for me, boy. And it's like, he shows that he doesn't have any teeth and everything. He's actually billed in the credits as Toothless Man. And we'll see him when we see him. But yeah, Reynolds was a big part of this film's success. Really was. I mean, Jon Voight had a little bit more experience under him, and of course, he had the prestige and everything. And of course, Ronny Cox and Ned Beatty, of course, had never stepped before a camera before. Now, the amazing thing is that when they were looking for unknown actors to play the other 2 roles with Burt and John, everybody should write John Boorman a thank you letter. If you are a fan of Ned Beatty or Ronny Cox's work in anything, you need to write John Boorman a thank you letter, because he found them. He scouted, many, many places to find these 2 very unknown actors who, unbeknownst to the director, were actually friends in real life. They had actually been friends for 6 years. John Boorman had no idea. The studio had no idea. So here we are on the river now. God, man, the intensity levels just start to build right when they reach the water and they actually go out on the river. Like I said, all beautifully shot by Vilmos Zsigmondt. And yes, we are going under this bridge, which was actually commissioned and built just for the movie. And remember that bridge later. Oh my God, this very chilling shot of the kid with the banjo, as Ronny Cox would put it on the commentary track, he was like swinging it like a pendulum as they went under the bridge. And Burt Reynolds cited the scene as being like a perfect, like 360 shot. And he's absolutely right, too. But yeah, one of my favorite trivia bits that I learned while cruising through the extra features on this Blu-ray was that evidently Ronny Cox served as Ned Beatty's understudy in a stage production of King Lear before Deliverance. I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up at all. So I was like, my mind was blown at that point. And of course, like everybody remembers Ronny Cox from like Total Recall and Beverly Hills Cop, and especially RoboCop. I especially love him in RoboCop. I mean, his Dick Jones is just one of the great villains. I mean, he is just so nasty in that movie. He really is. And what's amazing is that, of course, okay, Burt Reynolds is gone, and oh, wait a minute, what? Oh, yeah, Burt Reynolds is gone, and Ned Beatty is gone. You know, they both passed away. I think Ned Beatty passed away a bit about 10 years ago, maybe. I'm not really sure, but well, anyway, but John Voight and Ronny Cox, they're both still with us. They're both in their 80s now, and they're both still working, which is amazing. John Voight is actually going to be coming in a upcoming biopic of Reagan. Now, get this: Dennis Quaid is playing Ronald Reagan. Do you really want to watch that? Do you really want to watch Dennis Quaid as Ronald Reagan? I mean, you guys tell me. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I got to admit I'm tempted on one level, but another level is to say no, 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 no. Well, John Voight is going to be in that movie, and he's actually just reunited with Francis Ford Coppola for a big, big, big production that is coming out next year. It's going to be the biggest thing that Francis Ford Coppola has done since The Godfather Part 3. And it sounds almost like a retirement film of sorts. I forget the name of it, but John Voight is going to be in that as well. But yeah, Ronny Cox and John Voight are still working, and of course, you know, John Voight is of course known now for his political ramblings on Twitter, which I'm not going to quote here for obvious reasons. But you know, look, I like John Voight in certain pictures. I mean, look, I never want to see Midnight Cowboy again, although I recognize its status as a classic. I mean, you know, it won the first and only X-rated film to win Best Picture. Absolutely. And you know, I like John Voight in the other movie he did with Francis Ford Coppola called The Rainmaker. I really liked him in that. And he's definitely done some other good films. I mean, the movie that he won the Oscar for, Coming Home, directed by Hal Ashby, is wonderful. I mean, he plays a paraplegic man who actually performs cunnilingus on Jane Fonda. I mean, come on, you know, and he won an Oscar for that. So look, I mean, John Voight's a good actor, and you know, he's had his fair share of good roles throughout his career, but I don't own many of them. I mean, I don't even own many John Boorman movies. Let's talk about John Boorman for a bit, because it was really amazing going through John Boorman's filmography when I was preparing for this. He's only made 16 films. John Boorman has only made 16 films, and the two films that seem to be cited usually as the best of his career are consistently Deliverance and 1987's Hope and Glory, which had also gotten a lot of critical acclaim, but made no money. Unlike Deliverance, it was not a hit at the box office. And Hope and Glory was based on his experiences growing up in England during World War II and everything. His last movie, which was the 2014 film Queen and Country, actually served as a sequel to Hope and Glory. But one of his first movies, he did Point Blank with Lee Marvin. I actually started out very early in his career working with Lee Marvin and they had a very good working relationship, so much that he wanted Lee Marvin to play the John Voight role. But Lee Marvin passed, saying that he was just too old. And Marlon Brando said he wasn't going to do Deliverance just because of the fact that, if Burt Reynolds was going to be in a picture, I was not going to do it. That's why Burt Reynolds is not in The Godfather. He probably would have been in The Godfather if it wasn't for Marlon Brando. So if any of you had any dreams of seeing Marlon Brando and Burt Reynolds in a movie together, forget it. Now, James Dickey had written all four of these characters as having different aspects of his personality. And I think that's what he was doing when he was there during the production for like the first few weeks of shooting, was to try to drill into all of them, who these characters were. But of course, what Dickey didn't understand was that, as actors, they had all gotten together for, rehearsal beforehand and had already fleshed out a history of these characters, but just using the book as something to refer back to, because how these adaptations go. They always usually go in their own direction and everything, and they would invent things or they would take out things to satisfy the need of the cinematic process. But yeah, this is an instance where I do think, like Jaws, I do think that the movie is better than the book. The book is good. The book is good for what it is. I mean, if you're a fan of Deliverance, you definitely need to give it a read. I wouldn't say it's essential reading. I wouldn't exactly recommend it for a summer reading list, I guess you could say. But look, if you love the movie, if you really truly love the movie, read the book, because the book does. I think it does provide a lot of what Dickey was trying to do with these characters, of course. And of course, he would pull the actors aside, and try to talk to them like, all this stuff happened to me. You know that, don't you? But of course, as John Boorman realized, because apparently Dickey had never ridden in a canoe before. So, John Boorman knew at that moment that James Dickey was full of shit. I mean, as a man of letters, as a poet, the man was unparalleled. But, when it came to Deliverance, I think he probably went a little too far in almost compromising the entire process and project as a whole. Sometimes it's better for the authors to just, not be around. Sometimes it's just for the best. But see, I mean, Dickey was also a professor. He had served as a professor at a college for English and everything. So, he thought he could be some kind of guide for all of the actors. But the actors knew what they were doing. They knew, going into this, they knew how they were going to play these characters. They knew the physicality requirements. They were well aware and well prepared of all that. And they knew that this was going to be a grueling shoot that was either going to make or break their careers. So, I mean, for everybody involved, I mean, seriously, even John Boorman himself. I mean, the thing is, for John Boorman, after this, he did Zardoz, which to this day I still have not seen. I've heard so many bizarre things about Zardoz. That film with Sean Connery, which is like The Wizard of Oz or whatever. If any of you think I should see Zardoz, please let me know. But I'll be perfectly honest with you, and yes, I'm a little ashamed of myself that I actually do own this on Blu-ray, but I actually do have the collector's edition of Exorcist II: The Heretic. Now, part of the reason why I own this Blu-ray, however, is because somebody who did a commentary on this movie, Scott Michael Bosco. I'm actually really good friends with him, and I bought it just to hear his commentary. Okay, but I'll be perfectly honest with you. I do think that Exorcist II is a little misunderstood, and I don't think it deserves as much hate that it gets, particularly from fans of the first Exorcist. I don't think it's terrible. And I do own another John Boorman film called Beyond Rangoon with Patricia Arquette. This is a very underrated little thriller that is based on the true events that happened in Myanmar back when it was known as Burma in 1988 during the uprising and everything, where many people died and everything. But Patricia Arquette is excellent in this movie, but it made no money. It made no money at the box office for Warner Brothers or John Boorman, sadly. But like I said, I give Exorcist 2 a chance and check out Beyond Rangoon. I mean, I should have Excalibur. I know I should have Excalibur because that's considered one of his best movies. That here again, probably not talked about enough, particularly in the realms of fantasy. But here he was just dabbling in those genres like science fiction, horror, and fantasy with those films Zardoz, Exorcist 2, and Excalibur. And he also did The Emerald Forest. And like I said, his last movie was Queen and Country in 2014, and he's still with us at 89 years old. So eventually I wouldn't mind doing like a ranking of his entire filmography, because there are still certain ones that I haven't seen yet. And needless to say, I think he's now officially retired from films. Excuse me as I get some water here real quick. Oh, yes. You know what, Sean? I absolutely agree with you. Runaway Train is one of John Voight's best films. Yeah, I should own that. I should own Runaway Train. That is a great movie. Best line, yes, exactly. You don't beat this river. You don't beat this river. That is exactly one of the great lines in this movie. It's like, Ned, calm down, man. Calm down, okay? We still got a lot of time on the river here. Oh, Johnny Lewis, great you could come out tonight, sir. Boorman is a huge blind spot in my physical media library. Yeah, as I said before, the weird thing about John Boorman's filmography is that aside from Deliverance and Hope and Glory, a lot of his films just don't get talked about. I mean, Exorcist 2 for understandable reasons. A lot of people hate Exorcist 2. But, then there's Excalibur and there's Zardoz. And there's also Where the Heart Is, which, no, as much as I love Dabney Coleman, and I do adore Dabney Coleman, he's my favorite character actor of all time, I do not have a copy of Where the Heart Is. For anybody that wants to know, Where the Heart Is was the movie he made after Hope and Glory, which, of course, was a critical hit, but it made no money. And Where the Heart Is was a massive bomb. He made that for Disney, and it pretty much crippled his career at that point. And, Beyond Rangoon was a $23 million production. It was a $23 million production, and it only made about $6 million. And John Boorman actually cites that the reason for that is because of the fact that the Burmese government was harassing the United States not to release it. So, and then, like I said, this was before. There's 2 movies associated with Burma I think everybody should check out. One of them is Beyond Rangoon, and the other one is, believe it or not, the 2008 Rambo film that Stallone made, which is actually the best one since the original First Blood. Uma Thurman and Crispin Glover in the same movie. And I'll be perfectly honest. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Where the Heart Is. Like I said, I love Dabney Coleman. I should see it. Isn't that amazing? Is that Dabney Coleman did so much great work in the 1980s. He didn't get a starring role until he was 60 years old, and that was in Where the Heart Is, as well as another film he did the same year called Short Time, which I think is actually remembered a little bit more than Where the Heart Is. But Now, one thing about Deliverance, which is also interesting, is the fact that Ned Beatty, the one man of the quartet, was the only one that had ever had any experience in a canoe. He's the only one that has ever been out on a river in a canoe before. And on top of all that, he was also the only actor that had been out in the woods before. So that so he probably served as a real guide and coach for the other actors in terms of survival skills and getting out there on the water and everything. I've only been canoeing with the Boy Scouts. I did do some canoeing with the Boy Scouts for a while. I don't think I ever got the canoeing merit badge, but I do remember enjoying it. I mean, it wasn't something that I had any ambition to continue doing later in life, but paddle, you son of a bitch. Oh, yeah, poor Ned Beatty. He goes through a lot in this movie. And of course, yeah, I mean, the great thing is that he's supposed to be the klutz of the story. And it's, but he's the one that actually had the most outdoor skills, the most experience outdoors, which is very much amazing. I saw it once because of the cast. It's no short time, but it's no hot to trot either. Oh God, oh my God, Dabney Coleman and his fake horse teeth in that movie. That is just pure nightmare fuel right there, my friend. Just pure nightmare fuel. Maybe not as scary as the nightmare fuel that Deliverance generates, because, like I said, as we go deeper and deeper into the forest, we there's something I wanted to bring up that's a little unrelated, but at the same time, I just wanted to bring it up right here, real quick. I'm a huge fan of a channel on YouTube called Top Fives, which looks at like real life mysteries. I mean, very much like in the unsolved mysteries vein, where they look at like UFOs and Bigfoot and murders, true crime, all that stuff. And one of my favorite of their videos is one the top 5 scariest videos shot in the woods or in the forest. And the number one video that they had, which I wasn't expecting, was actually a man's encounter with a mountain lion, which is pretty damn intense if you seriously watch it. And of course, a lot of people say that, oh, well, it's probably because of 2 reasons. Either the mountain lion wanted to get the guy out of his territory, or he was just hungry and everything. And so he had to. This guy actually had to pretend to be, bigger and superior to this lion and outwit him to get the hell out of the But very suspenseful stuff. Now, here we have the 2 villains of Deliverance, who just oh man. So yeah, so here are the 2 villains of the story, very famous villains of Deliverance. Bill McKinney as the mountain man on the right, and Herbert, quote, cowboy, unquote, coward as Toothless Man on the left. Now, let's start with Bill Kinney. Bill Kinney was a character actor. And actually, the only other big film that he did aside from this one that seems to be most recognizable to audiences is he played Captain Tyrrell, the commander pursuing the last rebels to hold out against surrendering to the Union forces in the Clint Eastwood movie The Outlaw Josie Wales. That came out in 1976, approximately 4 years after Deliverance. And even though this was a scene that all the actors had prepared for, Bill McKinney and Ned Beatty had actually, started a group together so they could work out this scene together of basically well, Bill McKinney is about to rape Ned Beatty right here. I mean, for those of you who are actually had never seen this before and just decided to jump on in, you're going to be shocked at the fact that yes, this movie, aside from the dueling banjos, is very famous for a rape scene that happens in the middle of the woods here. And Bill McKinney was, by all accounts, a very nice guy who, when he was working with Ned Beatty, made sure that he was comfortable and that this was going to work. And but what's so famous about this scene, more than anything, one of the great stories about Deliverance is, of course, I'll blow his goddamn balls off. Oh, you ain't going nowhere, boy. Yes. But anyway, the most one of the most famous stories about Deliverance is the fact of where the line "squealing like a pig" came from, because we're going to need a bigger boat from Jaws, that has entered the cultural lexicon. One of the most legendary lines in all of film. And it really came about when Warner Brothers had ordered John Boorman to make alternate takes of scenes to use for television airings. Because you got to remember, this was back long before cable. This was back when television only had 3 channels and PBS. And they had to make alternate takes where, if a character said fuck or shit, they had to re-engineer that and fix it in the sound mix to where they say something less offensive. One of my favorites is in the Robert Zemeckis film Used Cars, where a character says Jesus Christ, but in the television version, it's edited so ADR so that he says cheese and rice. And so the squealing like a pig line came from basically a proposed line for the edit for the television movie, but they liked the line so much they kept it in the main version. So while this was meant to be part of a television cut, in reality, they like "Squeal Like a Pig" so much they kept it in, and now it's become one of the most iconic lines in motion picture history. In this very, very disturbing scene, which, I mean, it's not graphic by today's standards, of course. I mean, but oh my god, just to see Ned Beatty with his drawers down. And oh god, oh, riding like a pig right there. Yeah, poor Ned Beatty. But hey, he became one of the most in-demand stars of the decade after this. I mean, very much so. But going back to Bill McKinney just real quick, this same year, he had also done Junior Bonner with with Steve McQueen, and I believe that was directed by Sam Peckinpah. Yeah, it was directed by Sam Peckinpah and starring Steve McQueen about a guy in the rodeo. And I'll be doing a commentary on that later next month in August. I'll be actually doing Junior Bonner and J.W. Koo, another rodeo movie from 1972. Together as a double commentary on Saturday night. So that'll be coming in a few weeks. But he was also in the Paul Newman film, The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean. So yeah, here's the close-ups now of oh no, God. Squealing like a pig close-ups. Now, okay, and the other actor, of course, is Herbert Cowboy Coward. Still with us. In fact, he was just interviewed for a new piece for the film's 50th anniversary and everything. As I said, Burt Reynolds actually knew him from this Western show that he did in North Carolina. Yeah, I mean, he actually didn't have teeth right there. And so he said, look, he gives him a call. It had been like 10 years since he had last seen him and worked with him. and he just gave the Cowboy Show a call and said, "Hey, is Cowboy Coward still there?" It's like, yeah. And he answers the phone and he says, "Look, I think I got a part for you in this new picture that I'm doing. Could you come down here to Georgia?" And Cowboy Coward famously has a stutter. And so he said, basically, he says, I'm not going to imitate it like Burt Reynolds did, but basically he stuttered while saying, well, make sure you tell them I do not know how to read. And he's like, no, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that. But eventually, when Cowboy Coward met director John Boorman, John Boorman actually gave him a piece of the script to actually read because Burt Reynolds forgot to tell him that he couldn't read. So Burt Reynolds just snatched the script up. He's got a real pretty mouth, ain't he? That's the truth. Oh, you're going to do some praying for me, boy. And you better pray good. And so Burt Reynolds basically said, no, I'll feed you the lines. And then you can just repeat them back and everything. And God. Oh, it was actually the author James Dickey that taught Burt Reynolds how to use the bow and arrow. He actually gave him a book that said the Zen in the art of archery. Yeah, but that's what. So Burt Reynolds learned all his archery skills and became very proficient at it because of the author James Dickey. But Burt Reynolds also said that whenever author James Dickey had a few martinis in him, that he wanted to shove a grenade down his throat. That's an actual quote. Oh man, this death scene. Look, kudos to Bill right here. Absolutely, kudos to Bill McKinney, because during these takes, these very long takes where he's basically lying on a branch dead, he never blinks once. There was actually, I think he basically broke a few records when he did this movie. But yeah, watch this entire sequence where they have this this moral discussion, over the dilemma that these men have, which is, well, do they take the body out and report it to the authorities, or do they bury it and pretend like it never happened? And Burt Reynolds, who of course is the more adventurous type, he's the one that has been kind of wanting to actually kill something for so long that he found his perfect opportunity. But in this case, it's actually and we missed earlier when John Voight was actually attempting to shoot the deer, and he was hesitating and starting to shake when he had the bow and arrow there. That's going to come into play later. That's actually a brilliant script device on the part of James Dickey when that pays off later. But yeah, look at this entire sequence. But Bill McKinney, he never blinks his eyes. And I'll be honest with you, I've already seen this sequence several times now. He never moves. He never moves. He never closes his eyes. Never blinks once. It's absolutely, absolutely extraordinary. Now, as for Cowboy Coward, yeah, upon the film's release, he became infamous for his often repeated line, "He got a real purty mouth, ain't he?" Yep, exactly. Cowboy Coward was featured in an episode of the Discovery Channel show Moonshiners, and he is the caretaker of the abandoned amusement park Ghost Town. And two of the show's moonshiners meet with him to ask if they can hide their bootleg whiskey in the abandoned town to let it age. And his performance and physical appearance in Deliverance, of course, has provided inspiration in other media, most notably the main character from the Primus video, My Name is Mud, which also sampled lines directly from the movie. But yeah, he's still with us at 83. I mean, he's still with us at 83. John Voight is in his 80s, and Ronny Cox is still in his 80s, and they're all still working. I mean, it's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, Ned Beatty, of course, became very highly sought after Deliverance. Bring up his filmography real quick. He was also in The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean. The next year, he was in The Thief Who Came to Dinner, White Lightning. And then his big break came with Nashville, the Robert Altman film. And then in 1976, he had a huge year in 1976 because he was in All the President's Men. He was in The Big Bus, the Academy Award-winning Network, and Silver Streak, where he played an FBI agent. That movie with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. It's so much fun, so much fun. And he was also in Exorcist II, The Heretic. And then, of course, he did Superman. He was Otis, the henchman to Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor in both Superman 1 and Superman 2. He also did Steven Spielberg's 1941, the Walter Matthau thriller called Hopscotch. One of my favorites, though, is he played the dean of admissions at the Great Lakes College in Back to School, where basically Rodney Dangerfield just gives him a check so he could attend freshman classes. And there's some great moments where Rodney Dangerfield and Ned Beatty are joking around on the film. Just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Ned Beatty was also in Repossessed with Linda Blair. Again, another connection to Exorcist II. He was in the 1990 version of Captain America, which I'm sure he regretted. He was also in a English comedy called Thunderpants about a kid that could fart, who he couldn't control his farting. He grew up with a particular problem, which is he couldn't stop farting. And eventually NASA decides to recruit the kid to help them launch rockets into space. I'm not kidding about this. And Ned Beatty is in this film where he actually goes up to the kid and he says, "You got real guts, son, and you got pants of thunder." So look, I love Ned Beatty. I mean, one of the last things that he did before he passed was Toy Story 3. He actually gave the voice of Lotso in Toy Story 3, and also he was also the tortoise in Rango, the Johnny Depp animated film directed by Gore Verbinski. And the very last film that he did was unfortunately a forgettable romantic comedy called Baggage Claim with Paula Pettin. And that was his last official, his final film role before he passed away last year at the age of 83 years old. He passed away on June 13th, 2021. But yeah, wonderful, wonderful character actor. I mean, I grew up watching the Superman movies, so to me, he was always Otis. I mean, I just love, every time he's Mr. Luthor, Mr. Luthor. He just every time he said that, it's like, my attorney will be in touch with you about the damage to the door. Oh, Otis, take the gentleman's cape. I don't think he wants me to, Mr. Luthor. I mean, come on. I mean, come on. Who doesn't love Ned Beatty? Okay. Ron Weasley in Thunderpants. Yep. 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 Sounds like Garrett Graham in front of the red car. Yep. 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 That's exactly who I was quoting. Garrett Graham. You know what's amazing? Okay, just real quick. I got to break the commentary just for 1 second. Forgive me. I just realized recently that in many roles that Garrett Graham had after used cars, he would drive a red car. He did it in My Girl 2. He did it in uh, what Child's Play 2. I mean, no, seriously, like he did these sequels where he drove red cars in them, which is pretty funny. Another movie with Burt and Ned was Stroker Ace. Oh God. Uh, okay, it has its fans. I respect that. It has its fans, but that's also the film that kind of killed Burt's career. He passed on doing Smokey and the Bandit 3 to do Stroker Ace. I mean, it's only kind of drawers men wore. Tidy whities are out, and I have been for over 20 years. Yep, 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 yep. Peas and rice. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Peas and rice. Yeah. Yep. God, so can you imagine what it must have been like for the actors, for like Bill McKinney and everybody involved here? Stunts? What stunts? Well, actually, okay, there's one stunt. There's one place in the movie where a stuntman was brought in. But for the most part, no stunts. John Voight actually climbed the side of a cliff. He actually did. We're going to see that later. And here's Ronny Cox going a little nuts here because he lost the vote as far as going to the authorities or burying the evidence, and so now they're burying the evidence. Yeah, like I said, I think Ronny Cox. I think my favorite Ronny Cox role is hands down RoboCop. I mean, Dick Jones in RoboCop is just legendary for me. I love him in that movie. But he was also in the Hal Ashby film Bound for Glory, which I have a copy of. They really need to give that movie a new Blu-ray or a 4K or something. Such a gorgeous, gorgeous movie. How amazing is that? Ronny Cox and Ned Beatty were both in the 1990 version of Captain America. I just realized that right now. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. Yeah, he did that the same year as Total Recall. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. But Ronny Cox, the amazing thing about Ronny Cox is that he's also a musician. As we saw earlier when he was in the dueling banjo sequence. On July 25th, 2021, just a year ago, on that day, Cox won the New Mexico Music Awards with the Norman Petty Producers Award, going to Tom Panda Ryan for his recording of Ronny Cox's Live at the Kitchen Sink, featuring the 2021 Best Folk Music Award with his song Portals. Live at the Kitchen Sink was recorded at the Kitchen Sink Recording Studio in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The man is 84. The man is 84, and he's still making music and winning awards for music. Like I said, I love this cast. I love these four actors in these roles. And Ronny Cox is the one that actually brought up on the bonus material that, hey, isn't this like one of the best cast movies that there's ever have been? Ever. It's perfectly cast. You can't cast this movie any better. I honestly believe that. You can't cast it any better. Any better. Excuse me. Had to get some water there. Now, I'm going to be making some upgrades to my channel pretty soon because eventually I want to put an on-screen time stamper just so I don't have to say the timestamp, several times all throughout the movie. But just to let everybody know, we are currently at timestamp 1 hour, 1 minute, and 15 seconds. 1 hour, 1 minute, and 20 seconds. So we're a little over halfway through. And Ronny Cox, this is his moment to shine because he's going to sadly meet a very sad end here. Something's obviously wrong. We're not exactly what exactly is wrong. Like I said, I mean, everything is presented visually, which is great, but we can tell by Ronny Cox's behavior that something is off. Something's not right here. Oh no! Now that the thing is, did he have like a stroke or a heart attack, or did something far more insidious happen when they were out there on the river? Now, Burt Reynolds actually broke his broke his tailbone in the sequence. He actually broke his tailbone, and because originally when they were going to use a dummy, Burt Reynolds asked John Boorman how did it look. Well, it looked like a dummy going over a waterfall. So he actually did this himself and broke his tailbone in the process. And I think we'll kick off from there from some of the other more extraordinary events that happened during the making of this movie. While filming the whitewater canoeing scene, Ned Beatty was thrown overboard and was sucked under by a whirlpool. A production assistant dove in to save him, but he didn't surface for 30 seconds. Sir John Boorman asked Ned Beatty, "How do you feel?" And Ned Beatty responded, "I thought I was going to drown." And the first thought was, how will John finish the film without me? And my second thought was, I bet the bastard will find a way. Yep. And right here, Burt Reynolds broke his tailbone while going down the rapids after the canoe had capsized. Yep. And remember, aside from one small exception in terms of John Voight in a scene coming up here, there was no stuntmen because nobody was insured while making this movie. Just absolutely extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. Following the film after its release, tourism increased to Rabun County, Georgia by the tens of thousands. By 2012, tourism was the largest source of revenue in the county. John Voight's stunt double for this film, Claude Terry, later purchased equipment used in the movie from Warner Brothers. He founded what is now the oldest whitewater rafting adventure company on the Chattanooga River, Southeastern Expeditions. By 2012, rafting had developed as a $20 million industry in the region. During the filming of the canoe scene, author James Dickey did in fact show up inebriated and got into a bitter argument with Sir John Boorman, who had rewritten Dickey's script. They had a brief fist fight in which Boorman's nose was broken and 4 of his teeth shattered. Dickey was thrown off the set, but no charges were filed against him. And we're about to we're almost to the cliff climbing scene here, the very famous cliff climbing scene that Jon Voight pretty much did himself. I mean, there's only a couple shots of the stuntman. There's only a couple shots of a stuntman, but for the most part, Jon Voight actually scaled that cliff. I mean, bravo to Jon Voight. Bravo. That like I said, I mean, he loves to joke that this movie saved his career, but he died probably almost died a number of times during the filming of it. Regarding the courage of the four main actors in the movie doing their own stunts without insurance protection, James Dickey was quoted as saying that all of them had, quote, more guts than a burglar. In a nod to their stunt performing audacity, earlier in the movie, Lewis says, insurance? I've never been insured in my life. I don't believe in insurance. There's no risk. Sir John Boorman wanted Vilmos Zsigmond as the director of photography because he'd famously filmed the 1956 Soviet invasion of Hungary. Boorman reckoned that anyone who had filmed under the threat of Russian tanks and guns would be totally ideally suited to an intense and grueling shoot, which this movie promised to be. I'm sure Vilmos Zsigmond understands what the Ukrainians are going through right now. But Vilmos Zsigmond, he passed away, I think in the past 10 years. I think so. The movie doesn't explain the title, but the book states that what the city boys are trying to find in the backwoods is deliverance from the stress of modern life. And Joe Bob Briggs actually cited Deliverance in his audio commentary for the rape revenge film I Spit on Your Grave. That this was the film that started a whole trend of civilization against the wild savage. And also I Spit on Your Grave has a lot of canoeing scenes in it with the actress Camille Keaton. So it makes sense why the director chose to do that. Oh, Ned Beatty is so good here. I mean, just remember all that his character has gone through already up until this point. And now they're just trying to survive and get the hell out of there. Get back to their cars, get back to civilization. But they must contend with Cowboy Coward, who is supposedly at the top of this cliff with a gun in his hand, and that he shot Ronny Cox, and that's why he fell into the river. But it's never really conclusive in the film, and I actually really like that. I mean, Ronny Cox may have just fallen into the river due to a heart attack. We don't know. Oh yeah. Now this whole sequence right here, which is just gorgeous. I love this whole scene right here. The cliff climbing scene was shot during the day and underexposed with a bluish tint added in post-production. Day for night shooting was common until the late 1970s because of slow film stocks and anamorphic lenses that didn't let in as much light as spherical lenses, requiring a lot of lights. Donald Sutherland had actually turned down the role of Ed because he objected to the violence in the script. But he later said that he regretted that decision when the movie became as successful as it did in 1972. Oh, look at Jon Voight's watch. Look at Jon Voight's watch right here. One of the things that was cited, I believe, by Ronny Cox in the movie was because they had been in the river for so long that the watch was now all clouded up and essentially damaged and everything. Now, and Burt Reynolds mentioned now on a normal movie, like the prop man would just give you another watch, but no, look, they were in the middle of nowhere, and oh yeah, so the kid in that picture is actually the director's son, John Boorman's son, who will appear at the end of the movie when John Voight ultimately survives all this. It should be noted also, very early in the film when they first arrived in their cars, and I believe it was either John Voight or Burt Reynolds, I forget which one, that he actually got in the car and he flipped the thing down and it had a Ronny Cox. That was Ronny Cox and his real family. That was actually a picture of Ronny Cox and his real family. In fact, Ronny Cox actually took his kids to see this movie. And at the time, his kids were 6 years old and 11 years old. And he said the kids got it. They understood that, this is all make believe, that their father is fine. He's still alive, but you got to imagine, I mean, seeing your father in the state that he was near the end of this movie, which, by the way, that was just something that Ronny Cox knew how to do with his arms and everything to make him look deformed. It's really amazing. But like I said, I love this whole bluish tint to this day for night sequences. John Voight's going up the cliff here. Mm. The inspiration for the Cohulawasi River was actually the Kusawati River, which was dammed in the 1970s and contained several dangerous whitewater rapids before being flooded by Carter's Lake. But the film was shot primarily on the Chattooga River, which divides South Carolina and Georgia. Additional scenes were shot on the Tallulah Gorge in Georgia, Salem, South Carolina, and Sylva, North Carolina. Shots of the town, which did not call for the actors to be present, were shot in Monica, Pennsylvania. Sam Peckinpah actually wanted to direct Deliverance initially, which kind of makes sense. But when John Boorman got the rights to do it, Sam Peckinpah went off and did Straw Dogs instead in England with Dustin Hoffman and David Warner, who just passed away. Rest in peace, David Warner. An actor who I especially love from the 1970s and films like Time After Time, The canoes used in the film are displayed at the Burt Reynolds Museum in Jupiter, Florida. One of the canoes was used and signed by Ronny Cox, is on display in the Tallulah Falls Railroad Museum in Dillard, Georgia. Now, oh God, this sequence is so terrifying, isn't it? And it holds up. This is a timeless movie. There is nothing about this movie that dates it 1972. Trust me, this is a timeless movie. When I saw this again, I was thinking, no, this is a movie that's going to live on and on and on. This is never going to date. Never going to date. No credit was given for the film's score. The film has several sparse, brooding passages of music scattered throughout, including several played on a synthesizer. Some prints of the movie omit much of this extra music. See here, John Voight is beginning to crack up again like he did earlier with the deer. It's like, oh, ouch. Oh, Yeah, it's amazing that, I haven't seen this movie in about 25 years. And I had forgotten how Cowboy Coward actually died right here. So when this happened again, I was like, oh my God, this is scary, man. He's about to actually shoot him. And then you realize that the arrow actually did go off. And it actually, I mean, you can see the arrow if you've seen this movie before, but if you've never seen it before, you can't quite see the arrow poking out there until he actually does fall down, and then you see the arrow which had gone through his neck. That is some terrific work on the part of John Boorman right there. Really amazing work. John Voight didn't have to use that knife now, thank goodness. I mean, it was only for like one or two shots of where they needed a stuntman, but otherwise, this is all John Voight. I mean, even when he goes into the water coming up here, that was John Voight. I mean, look, I can't stand the man's politics, but I applaud him for what he went through with this. All four actors. I mean, all four actors are equal in terms of how much they contribute to this movie, and they're all great in their own way. Uh, there you go. Uh, let's see here. The rape scene was filmed in one take, largely because Ned Beatty didn't want to film it repeatedly. Oh, well, absolutely understandable. Absolutely. For his death scene, Bill McKinney trained himself to hold his breath and not blink for 2 minutes. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, really? The dream sequence at the end became the inspiration for the end of Carrie, the Brian De Palma film, and then countless horror films after that. Wow. So this is the film that gave the inspiration for the ending to Carrie to Brian De Palma. Wow, that is pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. Ironically, this movie became one of the most influential in the world of horror. The ending, when John Voight, Ed Gentry in the movie dreams that mountain man Bill McKinney reaches up at him in revenge suddenly, reaching out of his watery grave where he was slain in the Chattooga River, became one of the most influential scenes in cinema history. Because horror director Brian De Palma saw it and approximated it in Carrie, at that point, the presumably dead villain jumping at the ending for one last scare became a staple in horror movies. So I think this pretty much clears up any question mark as to with Deliverance as a horror movie or not. I would say it does qualify. I'm comfortable in now saying that Deliverance does qualify as a horror movie. Absolutely. Now, Warner Brothers, when they first saw the movie in its complete form at the studio, they walked out basically not almost not saying a word to director John Boorman. Basically, walked out in total silence, and John Boorman was like, "Uh-oh," and he asked them when they were leaving, "You didn't like the movie?" They turned around. They said to John Boorman, "Look, we all like the movie. We all really, really, really like the movie. But the truth of the matter is, there has never been a movie in motion picture history with no women that has never made any money." Now, Deliverance, of course, has a couple of women at the very, very end. We see the nurse, we see John Voight's wife, we do see Ronny Cox's wife in the picture. I mean, the female presence in this movie is absolutely minimal. So I can completely understand the studio's fear of this not selling very well because there's no primary female characters. But look, I mean, the book is about four businessmen who go in the wilds of Georgia on a canoeing trip. I mean, it's kind of understandable. it's, but on top of all that, I want to cite one of my favorite Humphrey Bogart movies, which is The Caine Mutiny. Now, The Caine Mutiny is based on a very famous book about a mutiny that happens in the United States Navy. And when the movie came out, some of the advertising, and I mean, there was a very young lieutenant in the movie who the actor passed away like a year after Caine Mutiny came out, and that it was supposed to be told from his point of view. But in reality, the real story was, of course, Van Johnson having to deal with Humphrey Bogart and Fred McMurray in this battle between the ranks during when there's a mutiny during a rainstorm and everything, when they were in the middle of the middle of the ocean. And like these scenes that showed this young lieutenant with with his girlfriend were completely unnecessary to the plot of the movie. So, but here again, with some of these stories, like, okay, like Predator, there's only one female character. I actually like her in Predator. I actually like that actress, and I like her, like that performance. Shawshank Redemption is one of the biggest movies of all time, and there's hardly any women in that. But here in 1972, they were actually very concerned that the minimal female presence would not sell tickets. But look, Deliverance was a hit. It made $46 million on a $2 million budget. Like I said, that was a $2 million budget with no insurance provided for the cast and crew as they were filming out in the wilds of Georgia on this river. I mean, there were moments where the actors didn't know if they could handle, just being in a canoe and going through all these rapids and everything. I mean, John Boorman said that at certain times they almost turned their back on him. They really did. I mean, they could have left at any time and said goodbye to their careers, but they slugged it out. They chugged it out, and yep. And here we come upon Ronny Cox's character. Now, Ronny Cox in real life has hypermobility. In layman's terms, he is double jointed. He suggested to Sir John Boorman that his arm appeared twisted around his neck when his body was discovered. That is not a prosthetic, ladies and gentlemen. That is not a prosthetic. That is all Ronny Cox. Wow. Just wow. Can you imagine Ned Beatty's and John Voight's reaction to this when they eventually shot it? Can you imagine their reaction? Oh my God, man. I mean, just look at John Voight right here. He's really struggling. He's really struggling with Ronny Cox. Oh man. Oh. Let me do a timestamp here real quick. We are approximately 1 hour and 25 minutes and 20 seconds. 1 hour, 25, 20 seconds. So we have about 24 minutes left of Deliverance. And like I said, I'm going to provide the link for the next commentary here at the bottom of the screen very soon, which will be for Night Shift at 11 a.m. So we're going to have about a 10-minute break. because this film is going to end about 10:53, 10:54. We're going to have a 6 to 7 minute break, and we will go ahead and start Night Shift. And like I said, I'll provide the link for that at the bottom of the screen when that comes up. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for coming out tonight. Anybody that's out in the chat, please let me know that you're here, what you think of Deliverance as a whole. What do you think of this film? I mean, it's just, I do think it's a classic. I do think it's one of the best films of 1972. I am going to be doing a video at the end of the year showcasing my picks for the year after all these commentary tracks. After all these 50th anniversary commentary tracks, I will be doing a top 11 movies of 1972. And believe me, Deliverance is going to be on there. It most definitely is going to be on there. I think this is a perfect time now to talk about the Blu-ray. Now, I picked up this Blu-ray book for just $20 at Amazon. I've grown to really love these Blu-ray books. I really have. But basically, there's a audio commentary by director John Boorman. Very articulate gentleman, very British and everything. Loved listening to it. I mean, for solo commentaries, you can run hot and cold with certain ones, but as a solo director's commentary, John Boorman is really, really good in his commentary. One of the best bonus features on this Blu-ray set, though, is a 40th anniversary reunion with the 4 main characters at the Burt Reynolds Museum in Jupiter, Florida. And there's a moment early on, which is a little embarrassing because John Voight tries to talk over Ronny Cox, and Burt Reynolds basically tries to steer the conversation back to Ronny Cox, almost as if saying, John, shut up. Let Ronny speak, okay? You just spoke over him. It's like, but no, the truth of the matter is that all 4 of these actors bonded during the making of the movie, and they remained friends all the way up until the deaths of Ned Beatty and Burt Reynolds only a few years ago. But they all remained friends because they had bonded over this very unique filmmaking experience. And, makes perfect sense. Makes absolutely perfect sense. I mean, they worked together on other films, of course, afterward and everything. And it totally makes sense to me why they bonded during the making of this movie. It really does make sense. Now, the Blu-ray set, it also has a 3-part documentary. Each part runs about maybe 13, 14 minutes, I should say. So total, we have about a 40-minute documentary split into 3 parts and everything. There is also a theatrical trailer, as well as an original featurette from 1972 while they were shooting the movie. And they talk a lot about James Dickey. They talk a lot about James Dickey and what he was like dealing with during the production of the movie, obviously. I've always loved the tagline for Deliverance right here also. This is the weekend they didn't play golf. It's just, damn it, we should have stayed on the golf course, man. Yeah. Some really cool production photos right there. Right there. I'm just sharing this with all of you. Yeah, really nice Blu-ray book. Really, really nice, I think. Profiles on all the actors right there. Burt Reynolds is cut off. I love it, showing off his biceps and everything. Really super cool. Really super cool. Yeah, Ronny Cox right there. Yep. And we there is stuff here on the director and the making of the movie as well. Yeah, I mean, this is still available for a very reasonable price. If you love the movie, you should definitely pick it up. Really, really cool stuff. Yeah, I'm really glad I picked this up. Really, really glad I did. There's the original theatrical poster for the movie. Nominated for 3 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Editing. Mainstream with dueling banjos changed the lives of the stars. Yep. There you go. A boy with pluck. Yeah, because that's pretty much all he did was pluck it. There's the boy that you could see putting his arm around, which was helping out with that scene too. That's really cool. Really cool stuff. Oh yeah. Definitely one of the GOAT. You nailed it, calling it essentially timeless. It is. There is nothing about this movie that dates. Nothing. Not a damn thing. This 50 years later, this movie is just, yeah, it still holds up beautifully. Just look at the shot. Look at that shot right there. That is so gorgeous. Look at Burt right here, you know. Oh. You know, I loved having my face in your ass, Ned. So yeah, John Voight is going to run out into civilization so they can get Burt Reynolds to a doctor, obviously. Now, something that needs to be put to rest right now, because I think this was for some reason this has been an IMDb rumor for like the longest time, but Ed O'Neill from a Modern Family and from Married with Children, he does not appear in Deliverance. He's usually mistaken for a police sergeant late in the movie, which we'll get to here in just a few minutes. But that is not Ed O'Neill. Just to make it clear right now, that is not Ed O'Neill. That is another actor. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Here's Burt going off to the hospital here. Yeah. All right, let's see. Anything else that I'm missing that needs to be. Oh, when you saw Burt Reynolds' broken leg in the water there, that was actually a lamb bone sticking out of Burt Reynolds' pant leg. But he actually broke his tailbone doing that. So now, okay, the nurse that you see on screen right here, one of the few female characters in the movie, it was her father that actually commissioned and built the bridge that we saw earlier with the kid with the banjo. So she's connected to that bridge that we saw earlier. And here we have a very, very moving scene, which has been cited by many of the actors as one of their favorites, where John Voight decides to join Ned Beatty in this family dinner. You know, and just the little things where he's offered peas and carrots and just food, you know, nourishment and everything after this very traumatic experience for both of them, and just, you know, just the that little bit of generosity moves Jon Voight so much that it moves him to tears. Like I said, great performance in a great movie. Yeah. I look at Ned Beatty right there, like, oh, look how broken he is and everything. Oh man, so good. So good. Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm speechless because of the scene. It is that good. I mean, it's that good. I mean, like I said, after all the traumatic experiences that they went through during this trip, they just sit down for a nice, home cooked meal, and they nourish themselves, and they get back into a kind of a normalcy that they hadn't experienced in so long. Just wonderful. Henry Fonda was turned down for the role of Lewis. James Stewart was also considered for the role. The ambulance attendant in the window in the previous shot actually killed a man in 1975, and he served 10 years in jail. Well, that's something I wasn't expecting to read on on this movie. Yeah, contrary to popular belief, the deputy at the hospital was played by Lewis Crone, not Ed O'Neill, some actor named Lewis Crone. Emory University chemistry professor Claude Terry consulted on the canoe trip and navigating the Chattooga and other rivers. After the movie's release, Claude founded Southwest Eastern Expeditions, which provided raft trips with trained guides on whitewater rivers. Rafting the Chattooga, the Akosee River in Tennessee, and other whitewater rivers has become very popular, especially in the summer, but he is now retired. Gene Hackman was offered the role of Ed, but he actually wanted to play Lewis, but he eventually turned it down. During filming, rocks destroyed the 5 wooden canoes and dented the aluminum one severely. So yeah, like I said, if you want to pick up Deliverance, I highly recommend this Blu-ray book and everything. I highly recommend you pick it up here. Now, here's the scene with the sheriff, and the sheriff is obviously played by the author James Dickey, and this was after he and John Boorman got into a fist fight and got kicked off the set. Well, guess what? Now here is James Dickey in all his glory right here. He passed away in 1997, actually. Like I said, he's very much renowned in the world of letters and for his poetry and everything. But I don't think he had another success quite like Deliverance. I really don't think he did. Dickey taught as an instructor of English at Rice University in Houston, Texas in 1950. And following his second Air Force stint from 52 to 54, Dickey returned to academic teaching. He also served in the Army during World War II. He quit his teaching job at the University of Florida in the spring of 1956 after a group of American Penn's Women's Society protested his reading of the poem called The Father's Body. He quit rather than apologize. This incident, some critics believe he manipulated to his advantage. He became a successful copywriter for advertising agencies selling Coca-Cola and Lay's potato chips, while in his free time writing some of his best poetry. He once said he embarked on his advertising career in order to, quote, make some bucks. Dickey also said, I was selling my soul to the devil all day and trying to buy it back all night. He was ultimately fired for shirking his work responsibilities. His first book, Into the Stone and Other Poems, was published in 1960. Drowning with Others, published in 1962, which led to a Guggenheim Fellowship Northern Anthology Award. Among his better-known poems are The Performance, Cherry Log Road, Firebombing, Mayday Sermon, Falling, and For the Last Wolverine. He published his first volume of collected poems in 1967 after being named poetry consultant for the Library of Congress. This publishing may represent Dickey's best work. After serving as a visiting lecturer at several institutions from 1963 to 1968, Dickey returned to academia in earnest in 1969 as a professor of English and writer in residence at the University of South Carolina, a position he held for the remainder of his life. But he was actually born in Atlanta, Georgia, which of course is where all these businessmen are from. And all of these businessmen apparently, reportedly, have individual aspects of Dickey's personality. Yeah, that's the cop that I was referring to that a lot of people mistake Ed O'Neill for. Well, that is not Ed O'Neill. Just to put that to rest right now, that is not Ed O'Neill. On January 20th, 1977, Dickey was invited to read his poem, The Strength of Fields, at the inauguration of Jimmy Carter. And James Dickey, he died on January 19th, 1997, age 73, 6 days after his last class at the University of South Carolina, where from 1968 he taught as a poet in residence. He spent the last years of his life in and out of hospitals, afflicted with severe alcoholism, jaundice, and later pulmonary fibrosis. And I think I read earlier and I forgot to mention earlier in the commentary, but Bill McKinney, who of course gets the arrow through his heart and everything and dies, right before he died, 2 weeks before he died, he was still working. He had filmed a Doritos commercial. Yeah, that was his last gig. He did a Doritos commercial. But hey, he was still working in his 80s. Still working. And like I said, I wanted to end this with an update on, of course, Jon Voight. I mentioned earlier, like I said, in 2023, there's going to be 2 movies with him coming out. See, how old is he now? He's like 84? He's 83 years old. He turns 84 in December. But he's in the biopic Reagan with Dennis Quaid as Ronald Reagan. Penelope Ann Miller as Nancy Reagan. That's a very interesting choice. C. Thomas Howell as Caspar Weinberger. And Jon Voight plays Victor Novikov. And who plays Jane Wyman but Mina Suvari from American Beauty and American Pie? She's playing Jane Wyman. I don't know if I want to see this. I really don't know if I want to see Dennis Quaid as Ronald Reagan. But he's also doing the Francis Ford Coppola film Megalopolis, which, speaking to Deadline, Coppola said, I plan this year to begin my long-standing ambition to make a major work utilizing all I have learned during my long career, beginning at the age of 16 doing theater. And that will be an epic on a grand scale, which I've titled Megalopolis. He had planned to direct the movie, a story about aftermath and reconstruction of New York City after a mega disaster. But after the city was hit by the real-life disaster of the September 11th attacks, the project was seen as being too sensitive. Understood. In August of 2021, it was announced that Coppola had begun discussions with actors, including Jon Voight, for the project, and that he was aiming to begin principal photography in the fall of 2022. In April of 2022, it was reported that filming is to take place from September 6th to February 2nd, 2023. However, Variety later confirmed that filming is set to start in August of 2022, so next month. In May of 2022, the star cast was revealed to have Adam Driver, Forrest Whitaker, Nathalie Emmanuel, John Voight, and Lawrence Fishburne. Yeah. So yeah, John Voight will be in those two films next year after he turns 84 years old. Yep. And Ronny Cox was just recently in Being the Ricardos, written and directed by Aaron Sorkin, which was about I Love Lucy. And he played one of the producers, Bob Carroll, played the older Bob Carroll in Being the Ricardos. So, like I said, he's still working as well. I mean, they're both in their mid-80s, and they're still very much working. As a matter of fact, Ronny Cox, he just turned 84 a week ago. He just turned 84 on July 23rd of this year. So, yep. Okay, timestamp. We are 1 hour and 47 minutes. 1 hour and 47 minutes in. We got approximately 2 minutes left to go. See, who plays John Voight's wife in this? Oh, that was actually Ned Beatty's wife, Belinda Beatty, in the role of John Voight's wife. That's not a joke. That's not a joke. That's Ned Beatty's wife right there. and of course the son that you saw earlier was the son of John Boorman, Charlie Boorman. So this is John Voight in bed with Ned Beatty's wife. Okay, I have seen enough of Deliverance. I have seen enough of Deliverance. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. I didn't realize that until I just looked it up right here. No, that is Ned Beatty's wife, Belinda Beatty. Oh, wow. And here we have our 4 leads: John Voight, Burt Reynolds, Ned Beatty, and Ronny Cox. Yes. So that is the legendary John Boorman film Deliverance. Like I said, 50 years old today on July 30th. 50 years old. Yeah, made on location on the Chattooga River in the Appalachian Mountains, thanks to the people of Rabun County, Georgia. And we fade out, and finally we're back on the river, distributed by Warner Brothers. And of course, Warner Brothers also distributed Night Shift, which we are going to watch here in just a minute. Let me just grab the link real quick. Don't go anywhere just yet. Grab the link here for Night Shift so you can go ahead and jump over there. And we're going to take about a 6 to 7 minute break. All right, here's the link. Yeah, go ahead and go. Yeah, I put Night Shift at the end. I should have put it in the front, but go ahead and go to that link. That's where I will be doing the Night Shift commentary in approximately 6 minutes. But like I said, I'll see you there in approximately 6 minutes, and we'll do Night Shift. I will be back.